Hello, I'm Zara, a self-published author of young adult and new adult fiction, a publishing grad student at NYU, and an aspiring literary agent.
Hi, I'm Kelly, a genre-hopping writer, domestic goddess, which is a fancy way of saying that I am a stay-at-home mom and wife, and I occasionally captain the Hot Mess Express. And this is Writish, the podcast by writers for writers, where we discuss craft and hot topics in the writing community.
This season, we're also starting to get into some interviews with other writers and industry professionals, so we're very excited for that and hope you'll enjoy those episodes as much as we did recording them. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the difference between architect or gardener, and we're going to start off with defining it because you're probably familiar with what Kelly and I have dubbed the 3 Ps, which are plotter, plantser, and pantser, but these are 2 separate categories that kind of overlap but don't necessarily. The quick and dirty version is that both of these titles take the gist of what they are in the non-writing world and then apply it to writing. So an architect is someone who plans the story out with a blueprint. It can be as detailed or as vague as possible, but it's something. And then you have a gardener who is someone who plants certain things. So maybe like they have an idea and then they just follow it and see where it organically goes from there.
I feel like I kind of fall a little bit into both camps, but I love that there are 2 very well-known fantasy worlds that also fall into these categories, but we will get to that later. So where do you fall?
I identify as an architect. I used to be a pantser, and I said I was never going to go back to it. And then I tried to go back to it with my thriller story because I was like, oh, this has been in my head for so long, it'll be fine. The answer is it wasn't. And I had to re-outline the whole thing. So basically, that's all to say I am firmly a plotter, which means I'm firmly an architect, but that doesn't always hold true for other people. Like we said, that these categories are a little bit more forgiving. And I like to have chapter by chapter descriptions versus Sarah Sutton, who I know is an outliner, but she likes to be a little bit less detailed because she would burn out at the end of writing an outline. So she'd be like, this is what needs to happen, but that's it, like very short. Whereas sometimes I'm like, this happens and then this happens and then this happens. So it's like everything that's happening, not just what needs to happen within a chapter. So yeah, architect. What about you?
I also identify as an architect. Most of the times there are things that if it's not central to the story, then I won't let it grow as much as other information. So maybe it's like a mix because I do see if things organically grow and kind of build them in accordingly. So I'm going to say I identify as an archiner.
I like that.
Yes, I will be an archiner because I need a middle place because I'm also indecisive.
I do think, though, that like in real life, an architect, and I can say this because I have cousins who are architects, so I'm not just pulling this out of thin air and like, this is what I think based on what I've seen from How I Met Your Mother, where Ted Mosby was an architect. They create plans and then they have to revise them just like authors do. So I do think that there is space for an architect to be like, oh, this didn't turn out well, let's see if there's another option. And, you know, they have to be creative too. So I don't think an architect is someone who is so married to their plans that they're not open to maybe inspiration hitting them and then following that inspiration. But when it comes down to like actually constructing the thing, they need to make sure everything fits together. Where I think maybe a gardener is more like, I'm just going to see where it goes and then worry about fixing it in revision later, which is also fine. And like revision is for fixing stuff no matter where you fall in the 3 Ps or this architect or gardener thing. So I just want to emphasize that whatever you consider yourself, that's not to say that things can't change. Because like Kelly kept saying in our outlining episode back in season 1, it's not set in stone and it's meant to be a breathing document.
When did you first hear the terms architect and gardener in the writing community?
It was definitely a Kate Kavanaugh video that I associate these categories with, but I know she got it from somewhere else, and I just don't remember.
I first read about it whenever I was reading an interview that George R. Martin was doing, and I forget who was interviewing him, but I remember reading this interview.
The moment you said that, it was when she tried George R. Martin's writing routine.
Oh, I'm gonna have to go back and watch that one.
That was a good one.